I look at research at Motilal Oswal Financial Services. So basically, it's the beginning of a new year, and we thought it would be best to give a market outlook for the full year, what investors can expect in 2022. So we have had seen last 2 years being very, you can say, historic moments in the market, with first wave and then second wave, both impacting the lifestyle of the people, but also impacting the economy and the markets. And now we are at the beginning of the third phase, third wave of pandemic, and let's hope that and pray that we all be healthy and not get impacted by that. And today being a very auspicious occasion of Makar Sankranti, wish you everyone a very happy Makar Sankranti. There are a lot of other festivals being celebrated throughout the country, so season's greetings to everybody. So coming back to market, so the pertinent questions that we have here is, we have seen now again market back above 18,000 levels, Nifty. So markets have run up sharply. The key question is, does it really make sense to participate at such levels? How DIs and FIs are impacting the market? We have had a historical year in terms of IPOs, how that looks going forward. What are the current valuations? What is our historical take? Will the valuations sustain or justify? So that is it. And then we have the global and domestic cues, some of which I will touch upon. And the most important thing, what are the key investment themes for this year and some of the ideas. So why we have seen markets have run up? If you see Indian markets in local currency, we were up 24%. Nifty was up 24%. It was the best performance in last 4 years. And if you compare that globally too, apart from US, so S&P 500 and Nasdaq both are in the US, which gave a return of 27%. India sharply outperformed a lot of developed as well as emerging markets, and that was clearly on back of the economic growth, economic strength that India showed. I request everyone to keep on mute so that there is no disturbance. Yeah. So
sorry for it.
No problem.
I request all our participants to please keep your audio on mute. If you have any queries, please share your queries at the chat box. Do not unmute yourself. Thank you. So please start.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, India, as I said, was so many inherent strengths in Indian economy. We are now among the fastest growing country globally. Even by the IMF growth forecast, we would be growing about 9% this year. So which would be among the fastest globally. We have seen the pace of vaccination in India, which has been among the one of the biggest vaccination projects globally, and that has helped at least while it cannot wade away the pandemic, but it is giving people the strength to bear the third wave when we are not seeing the kind of hospitalization or serious issues, at least in the third wave. The cases are getting recovered. The government has lowered the quarantine period from earlier 14 days to now 7 days. So those are the things which are helping. We have a very strong domestic consumption market, which is helping. The exports were also pretty strong in India last year. The kind of support that government, central bank did through various initiatives. We have seen the central government coming out with a lot of policy initiatives, a lot of incentives for manufacturing. There has been PLI schemes. Corporate tax rate has been lowered. Plus, the spending from the government, despite the state finances being uh, very low because of the low economic activity and low tax collection, government kept on spending. And to top it tilt, the central bank RBI has maintained low interest rates, has maintained an accommodative liquidity stance, which kind of supported the economy and helped the market. So Indian markets outperformed globally. We have seen some of the developed markets like Japan giving negative returns. Some of the other emerging markets like Brazil almost down 18% despite the commodity cycle doing so well. So if you see within the country, as I said, Nifty gave a return of 24%. Mid cap, small caps have been outperforming for last 2 years consistently. Mid caps did almost 45%. Small caps gave 60% kind of returns. These are typical signs of a bull market where individual stock bottom up stories do well. And this gain in the market was led by sectors like metals. As I said, there was a huge global commodity boom led by sharp increase in demand for metals. And metals generally are uh, in demand when industries do well. So core manufacturing does well. That is where you see demand for metals going up. And some supply constraints in key regions like China because of power availability, because of their pollution control norms. The prices went up, and metal sector, as a result, metal sector did well. Technology has been doing well on back of strong demand for digital cloud computing services in this new pandemic world. And another surprise sector was real estate. Almost after 2005-8, the real estate sector demand came back, and that is where the sector did well. Uh, so this was broad based. Some of the evergreens, the private banks, consumer, healthcare, auto. These were the sectors that generally we say that are the evergreen sectors, but those were the sectors which had very high valuation, growth kind of subdued, and they kind of underperformed. Now, if you look at historically, if you see Indian equities, as I said, last year was the best year in terms of 4 years. Before that, 2017 was a year when we had seen such kind of rally in mid and small caps. Nifty was up 30%. Mid caps were up 60% and small caps was up 80 to 90%. That was the year where a lot of stocks did well. And what we have done is we have classified or grouped the years into a 10-year period. So the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010. If you look at the cycles of 10 years, we have seen generally in most cycles there are 2 or 3 years of negative returns, and mostly the average return is somewhere in the range of about 20-25%. For the entire 30-year period. So in the current cycle, we have already seen 2 years of negative returns in the 2011 cycle, and while the large towers that we have seen in the previous cycle, the years where Nifty has given 70 plus kind of return, we have not seen in this year. It's largely distributed, and we have seen around 30% returns thrice and 24%. So on back of this, you can expect. We'll come to our conclusion, but the general sense is that we should see another year of about 15-20% kind of return, and that is largely being driven by the earnings growth. So FIs and DIs, how they have done. FIs have been net sellers, if you see in the market for the last 6-7 months, but there's a big shift in their stance in the previous year. When the pandemic fell and the market had crashed to 7,500 odd levels, that's the time when FI bought heavily. So if you look at 2019, they have record inflows, And from there, the markets have run up significantly. And at 18,000 levels, they are sitting at almost 150% kind of returns in their initial investment. But overall, you can see that they are sitting with returns of more than 100% over a period of 1 year. So we saw in August, September, a lot of foreign brokers coming out and saying that India valuation has become very high, and the portfolio weightages, when these foreign investors, they manage their portfolios across regions, they have a model portfolio in which they assign certain percentages or weightages to various countries or emerging markets. So generally, typically India figures about 6.5, 7% weight in the emerging market space. China has the biggest share in that. But because of this more than 100% kind of return, the weightages in the actual portfolios were about 12, 13, or 14 odd percent. Despite upgrading India's weightage to 7, 8 odd percent, they still needed to reduce the exposure to manage risk and to align to their model portfolio, what their portfolio suggests and what the actual portfolio is. So a lot of selling has been happening. I would suggest that I would say that it's more like a profit booking, given that within a period of a year they are getting 100% kind of return. And we all know that a lot of these FI monies is kind of hot money. They chase returns, and the moment they get their returns, they try to book an exit as quickly as possible. But nonetheless, domestic investors, both on the retail, HNI, as well as the domestic institutionals, have been pretty steady. They have provided that support. In any in historically, if we would have seen that if FIs were such large sellers, market would have been negative. But despite their consistent selling, we have seen market giving phenomenal returns. Last year, almost best in the last 4 years, that kind of returns, despite FIs being net sellers. So this has been largely being supported by the domestic flows. The domestic SIP inflows have now crossed 10,000 crores on a monthly basis. This is the highest ever. Demat accounts, the number of accounts opening has increased as at historical highs. So despite that, the equity penetration is quite low in the country. We have just 5% penetration. Financialization of saving is happening at a very fast pace. People are realizing the benefits of investing into equities. Direct equities, through mutual funds, through insurance ULIPs. So they are getting those benefits, and that is where the awareness and incremental savings are being deployed to earn that extra rupee on your savings. So that is helping the market and supporting the market. What also led was a fact that there was a huge IPO market in India last year. So there were 63 companies which came with the primary IPO. When I say primary, there is a SME exchange also, and where a lot of smaller companies raise fund. If you exclude them in the primary or the main board, what we say NSE and BSE main exchange, 63 companies raised 1.2 lakh crore, and that is a kind of a record money that has been raised ever. Not even in 2005-8 bull run we saw that kind of money being raised, although the number of companies will be much higher. But we have seen large companies coming out and raising funds. So we have seen the highest fundraise by Paytm, crossing the Coal India mark that was there in 2010. And even bigger IPO is being planned by Government of India, by LIC, which will again create a records of sorts in the Indian market, being the largest ever IPO. And hopefully, going by what the news report suggests, that it could be among the top market cap company, around 15 lakh crore market cap. It will figure among the top 5 listed companies post listing. So compared to that, 2020 was only 16 IPOs and 26,000 crores was raised. So basically, what FIs did was they were net buyers in these IPOs, both FIs and DIs. So if you look at some of the data points that would suggest that the FIs, which include the data for the primary market, they would be net buyers marginally. Otherwise, they would have been net sellers of about 80,000-90,000 crores for the year. If you include the primary market, then they would turn marginally net positive. So the IPO pipeline, why it is important, it highlights that there is an underlying strength in the market. People are interested in newer stories, newer segments that are now coming up and getting listed. We saw a lot of digital companies getting listed last year. Some years back, we did not have any insurance companies. A lot of insurance companies got listed. A lot of PSUs, good performing rail PSUs companies got listed. Some of the government insurance companies got listed. So now some of the wallets, digital payment companies, fintech companies are lining up for IPOs. You have companies like, as I said, LIC, NSE, which is the largest exchange in terms of volumes globally. That is going to come. That will be a huge opportunity. Some of the other like Pharma, Easy, Delivery, these are all new age companies that are coming. And so exciting times for the IPO pipeline continues, and the expectation is based on the pipeline. It will be another record year with 1.5 lakh to 1.8 lakh crore being raised. So as I said, this is kind of will continue to provide the strength to the market, saying that if so much of interest is there in the market, the IPO market will kind of sustain the trend in the market. Now coming to valuations, at the bottom of the market, that is at about 7,500 levels, the valuations definitely had corrected. So this is the market cap to GDP ratio, the market cap of all the listed companies in India to the India's GDP ratio. While the earnings outlook became grim in March 2020, the GDP did not fell that much, and the market cap to GDP fell to a bottom of about 56%, which is among, you can say, when we look at a 14-15 year history, among the lowest kind of a bottom. And from there, as I said, we have already up more than 100%. So this ratio has increased to 104 in last year, and this year it is at 116. Why? Is because there are two parts. One, the market cap, with newer companies getting listed, large companies getting listed, the market cap also swells. That is one factor. And the second is the GDP growth. As I said, that India's GDP growth forecast is really improved. So just to give you one anecdote about the GDP, that even before this pandemic, the global growth engine was kind of slowing down. There were concerns about growth globally. But what this pandemic has done is that globally, countries after countries, so governments have opened their purses, basically spending stimulus packages, spending, and kind of kick-started the economic growth. And once the economic cycle kick-starts, the cycle only becomes bigger and the cycle becomes larger. Why I'll tell you is because, say, 2008, 2005 to 2008, the size of the global economy, the size of Indian economy was comparatively much smaller compared to the size of the Indian economy now. So now we are almost $2.5-3 trillion dollar economy. That time we were just 1 trillion. So just think of a 5% growth on 1 trillion and 5% growth on a 3 trillion. So we are with the same 5% growth, the economy grows 3 times more. The growth is 3 times larger than what it would have been back then. So that is why I'm saying that the cycle, the size of the cycle and the time of the cycle both becomes much longer in the newer cycle. So that kind of impact this pandemic has helped kickstart the economic growth, and that will only just the cycle is we are just at the beginning of the cycle, and it could last for next 3 4 5 years. It's very difficult to predict the timing of the cycle, but as I said, we'll get to know only once the cycle ends. And what will end again, there are a lot of risks, but generally the risk that stops any large cycle is something which is not known or not factored in already by the market. So does this mean that this valuation is very high? As I said, while the valuations are high, the GDP growth cycle, the earnings growth cycle, both are just at the beginning, and we can see once the GDP grows much faster, and if there is some kind of time correction that the next 6 months we are at the same 18,000 odd levels, and we roll forward the economic growth to 1 year forward, the number will start looking attractive again. So definitely we have run up. There is little room. The upside is dependent on the economic growth and the earnings growth. Similar story, if you look at a PE chart or a price to book chart, we have recovered from the bottoms. But if you look at from a PE basis, we are around 20-21 times on the peak. This is a 1 year forward PE. What you see in the websites of NSE and a lot of others, which is a trailing PE. So in terms of 1 year forward PE, with the peak PE was about 24-25 times. On a trailing basis, it is about 28-29 times. So we definitely are not at the bottom, but as I said, the earning cycle can make this look a little lower, comfortable, and then we will have those kind of upsides if the earnings continue to grow. Now, what are the domestic and global cues? Third wave, as I already said, cases are on a high, but vaccination program has taken shape well. We are now already started with the booster dose for the aged people, and we have also started for the kids in the age group of 15 to 18 years. So hopefully, if you read news, some of the European countries have said that they from now on they will not consider the COVID as a pandemic anymore, and they will be considered just as a flu. So it will come, it will impact you for a few days, 2 to 3 days, you'll have fever and all those issues, and then you'll have to live with it. So that is what these countries are now saying, that it's no longer at the status of a pandemic. So people will have to live with this as a new flu or a new virus. The way we get viral fever in India, they get flu in Europe and US. So that kind of just a second. Yeah. So that kind of COVID is no longer a big risk that we see. A big growth expectation is budget. We have already started seeing the pre-hopes of the budgets. There has been talks that government will be doing a lot of focus on spending, on job creation, manufacturing, on infrastructure, on rural side. So the expectation is that a lot of spending on the infra, housing, real estate, healthcare will happen, which will kind of support the some of the core industrial sectors like capital goods, like infrastructure, real estate, cement. So we'll come to those themes again, but that kind of expectation is there. Q3 earnings, as I said, again, earnings growth is continuing. We have to see the impact going forward. One biggest benefit that the global equity markets got was easy money or easy liquidity money because of low interest rates, because of the bond buying programs, what you call globally as quantitative easing program, or you can say injection of money into the markets by buying bonds and giving money to the system by central banks, especially the Fed, the ECB, the Bank of England, Bank of Japan. So easy money. So that is now kind of reversing. and we are seeing that the tapering, basically reducing of the bond buying program, that will that is already started, and we can see about 2 to 3 rate hikes by US federal bank, which could be replicated by banks, central banks in other regions, including India. So Q3 earnings, as I said, key drivers, will not get into too much of detail, but basically metals, oil and gas, BFSI and IT are the key sectors which will drive earnings. What is more important is that the earnings upgrade cycle, as I said, after almost 10 years of single digit earnings growth, 2000 FY21 we saw earnings growing at double digit despite 1 quarter of pandemic. This financial year, we are likely to end with almost 25 to 30% growth on a low base of last year. And going forward, the earnings growth will continue at about 15% for the next 2 years, which is kind of the kind of earnings growth could be reflected in the market growth as well. Now, finally, what are the earnings things? As I said, valuations are not cheap. It has already run up. So what are the key risks before getting into the themes? One is there is a risk of time correction. Market doesn't go anywhere for some time. There is a correction of 5 to 10%, which can happen because of some of the global factors, increasing volatility, sell-off in global equities, including India. Interest rates taper off, easy money no longer easy money accessible. That is another risk. Another biggest risk, as I was telling you in the beginning, was inflation, commodity price hikes. Basically, with huge rise in commodity prices, margin pressure will come to a lot of sectors, and that can depress the earnings growth. So that is the biggest risk. Also, with the commodity-led inflation, central banks would be looking to control inflation by increasing interest rates, which again is negative for equity. So liquidity will get squeezed. Equity premium, risk premium will go up because risk-free premium will go up. And as I said, money will move out of equity into the risk-free money as interest rates move up. So these are some of the risks. Pandemic doesn't look like a big risk globally. There doesn't look like a financial risk right now. So at least, as I said, we are looking at a beginning of a key earnings cycle growth period of next 3, 4, 5 years. And this will be kind of a golden period for the equity markets globally, not only for India, but globally equities will do phenomenally well. And that is mainly on back of the economic growth and a lot of companies doing well. So what are the key themes that will do well? IT is one of the biggest sector which is benefiting. We have seen record order books from Indian IT companies. They are sitting at huge order books. The pipeline is pretty strong. They are hiring like frenzy, crazy. They don't have people to deliver on those orders. So the growth pipeline for next 3, 4 years is pretty strong. Globally, companies want to tighten up their digital spend, mainly on back of this pandemic, which has shaken up the way way business is being done globally. So people want to move to cloud, people want to become digital, so a lot of companies, a lot of segments which were not digital, say for example, teaching, they did not have digital books, they did not have a country like India being so developed, we are still using books and pens and papers, but now they were forced to move digital. Now all these books have to become digital. There has to be some cloud where these will be stored, they will be projected when the classes goes on. So I'm just giving you a basic example of how demand is going up, but globally there is a huge demand, and that is helping the Indian IT companies. BFSI banking is a segment which has underperformed in the last 2 years on back of significant pressure on asset quality, as well as credit growth was pretty slow. But as I said, if the economy growth picks up, banking, financial services is the lifeline for the economy to grow. Without the finances being moving economy cannot grow, and hence we believe that the pain period for the banking financial services is behind. And from here, with already a lot of NPAs in books, the credit growth can be pretty good, and that will lead to a fresh start for the BFSI. Real estate is a sector which, after, as I said, almost 10, 12 years, the cycle is coming back. What has happened is a lot of consolidation has happened on a pan-India basis. There was huge inventory buildup, which was kind of an overhang for the sector. But in the last few years, these companies, they have not launched any new projects, or not significant projects has been added. So supply was very constrained. And post-pandemic, we saw huge demand with low interest rates, people spending a lot more time at home. They needed bigger houses, they needed houses. So the demand went off the roof. The inventory dried up. That's the single biggest factor that is contributing, is that the huge inventory backlog that the real estate companies were sitting on. So it was at a historical cost, and they were able to sell it. Although a lot of discount selling also happened, but that kind of cleared off their inventory. And now we believe that the growth will continue for the sector. The good part is, because of RERA, because of GST, because of a lot of other regulations, the sector is in much more organized shape compared to what we had seen in earlier. So that is another sector which will do well. Telecom, the worst is behind. The AGR issues, the consolidation, the huge spends on 4G, all those things are behind. Companies are now able to pass on tariff hikes as well. So we see huge potential for companies like Bharti and Jio. So with this themes, I can say some of our top picks for the year. Basically, within the large cap space, one can look at Reliance, which is both your oil and gas and telecom. TCS/Infosys within the IT space. ICICI Bank, SBI. Again, some of the names are not here, but I'm just saying what we like. These are the two banks. SBI, despite being PSU, is one of the best efficient banks in India. One of the highest provision coverage ratios, and well diversified between retail and corporate lending. So SBI and ICICI Bank in the banking space. Bharti Airtel, as I already told you. Within the capital goods infrastructure, L&T is a quasi infra play in India. That cannot be a better company than L&T in the infrastructure, construction, capital goods space. Within the real estate space, we like Lodha, which is your macrotech developers. Within the healthcare space, Apollo Hospitals and Divi's. Divi's is in API manufacturer. Apollo is in the hospital space. Also has a pharmacy. Then the cement, we like Ultratech, we like Ramco, we like JK Cement. A lot of cement players, they will all do well with construction activity going up. Within the consumer space, basically the retail space, we like Titan, we like ABFRL, we like Trent, we like the newer space of the QSRs, basically Jubilant Foodworks, Devyani International, which is your Pizza Hut chain. So these companies in the mid-cap space are likely to do well. And with the equity markets doing well, we have some of the players which are linked to the equity markets. CDSL is there, BSE is listed, Angel One is in the capital market space. So we like that space as well. So basically, IT, you can look at in the large cap space, you can look at TCS, Infosys. Some of the newer age digital companies are also doing well. For example, Tata Elxsi, Coforge, your Zensar Technologies, some of the other you can say that the telecom plus the mobile digital companies, they are also doing well. You can have look at them. BFSI, larger space, ICICI, SBI, some of the smaller BFSI names are also doing well. Real estate, we like macro tech developers. There are other players also, for example, Godrej Properties, is the largest player that is doing very well. We like DLF. The deleveraging has happened at a very significant pace, and one of the best suited player in the NCR region. There are other Bangalore-based players like Brigade, Sobha. They are also doing well. And in telecom, you can play with via Reliance and Jio. So these are some of the picks from my side. Thank you. I think they already taken a lot of time. We can now take questions if you have any.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insights on the topics for 2022. So here I would like to open the question and answer session. And participants, if you have any queries related to today's program, please share your questions at the chat box. And if you wish to unmute yourself and ask questions directly to sir, yes, you can do it. I have also enabled you. You can unmute yourself and ask questions. Meanwhile, let me take a couple of questions from the chat box. There are two questions I can see at the chat box. So there's a question from Mr. I S Sakal ID saying ideas has similar facilities as given by DP. So what is the difference? So there are, as I said, there are these two are the investor centric services which are offered to the demat account holders, and you can the, if you see the on the idea, if you see ideas and Speedy, both the facility, you in fact there's no much difference to it, but yeah, through the ideas platform you can it is much more easier as compared to the investor point. And when you say talking about the Speedy part, wait, let me just take you through it. Okay, so Speedy, as I said, it is an internet-based facility which enables the user to submit instruction online. So if you want to submit instruction online with for margin pledge as such, so you can do it from that platform. And Ideas gives you is a platform wherein you can have an overview about about your investments, and you can get the holdings, transactions, whatever you have it. You can just go through it. You can subscribe for cash from that platform. And so it is like you have both the platforms in your hand, and from there uh, you can avail both the facility. Okay, so coming on to the next question, uh, I'll take it from Mr. Prabhakaran saying, is it possible to transfer shares online within NSDL and from NSDL to CDSL, vice versa? Yes, you can do it. There is a DRF form. You can just speak to your depository participant, and the depository participant will help you with the demat request form, DRF, and once you fill in the document from NSDL to CDSL, or from CDSL to NSDL, yes, you can do it. uh, okay, okay. So, sir has displayed. Mr. Keshava Murthy was asking to display the stock list. Yes, sir has done it. So you can go through it, Mr. Keshava Murthy. Also, I take a question from Mr. Anand Kumar Krishnan. REIT is going to be a good bet. Okay. So what is your take on it? REIT is
So
the real
basically,
estate.
real estate investment trust, that's a good way to look at buying, enabling the retail investors to participate in the real estate stories. So yes, it's a different instrument, but people confuse because it is listed. People confuse it as a direct equity. Basically, real estate investment trusts are kind of actually part owning a real estate. Say for example, a company which owns a floor in a commercial tower. Okay. So instead of you going and buying their entire floor and then renting it out to people and earning the rent, what they do is they make that floor as a separate entity and call it as a REIT. make smaller units as a financial units and sell it to different investors. Now, what you own is actually that a part of that floor. So the earnings that you get is your proportion of that ownership of that floor in terms of rental incomes that gets distributed as dividend. Okay, and that is the major source of income. So it is, in all essence, it is kind of a debt instrument rather than an equity instrument. What happens is, there are inflation linked escalation clauses, so rentals go up, there are demand supply, so if the real estate market has moved up, the underlying net present value, or the value of that floor, or that real estate value will move up, and that will get reflected in your capital appreciation, but it is very slow. um, so it's not exactly like an equity where you give a P multiple or earnings keep growing because companies can increase capacity. Lot of real estate trusts, they add capacity. So basically, when they have hived off, they have hived off the work in progress also. So basically, some of the REITs that are listed, maybe of say 4 floors, 5 floors, or maybe 3, 4, 5 projects, some of which have not yet become operational. So once they become operational, the growth increases, but the value already factors in the net present value of those things. So it's a good way where people cannot buy large projects but can partake into good assets. So it's a good way to invest, but it is not equity investing, it is real estate investing.
Correct, correct. So thank you, sir. I will take second question from Mr. Piyush Dalsania. He's saying, what is your view on insurance sector?
So insurance is a sector which is on a pretty good growth in India. Again, another underpenetrated sector with increasing financialization, with increasing, you can say, awareness. People, more and more people are opting towards insurance. The last 2 years of pandemic has increased more awareness both towards your health, medical insurance, as well as your life insurance. So I think that's a sector which is, one has to consider it as a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year kind of a sector. It will not give you overnight, or you can say 1 year multi-bagger kind of returns, but a steady, constant, consistent growth sector. Because the sector got listed few years back, there was a huge demand. Stocks already went up a lot, and valuations are at record highs, and hence that kind of underperformance that we are seeing. Also, because a lot of demand came in the last 2 years because of the pandemic, a lot of life which was not expected earlier were not factored into their models, underwriting models. They some of them have faced losses. But as I said, it's a good sector. Some of the good companies within that space are HDFC Life, ICICI Pru Life, all the companies, SBI Life, Max Life, they are all doing well. In the general insurance, we have only one pure play listed company, which is ICICI Lombard. Others are there, but they are in part. Say, for example, Bajaj Finserv has a insurance, general insurance subsidiary. Some of the others are there. In similarly, Aditya Birla Capital has insurance in their arm. So some of them is in the holding company, but these are the some of the preferred picks within insurance would be an SBI Life, Max Life, ICICI Pru. You can look at them.
Okay. So second question we'll take from Mr. Sandeep Mighty. He's asking any specific recommendation for specialty chemical sector.
Yeah, so that is another sector which has done consistently well in the last couple of years, and the outlook is still positive. And because of factors, say for example, the general bulk chemicals, you have a huge capacity in China, but these specialty chemicals which are niche, which require small capacities, India has done really well. Globally, Indian companies are getting a lot of favorability in terms of sourcing of these specialty chemicals. Also, because of post-pandemic Europe, US, they have now clearly stated that China plus one strategy means they would try and create more supply chain countries apart from China, and where they are supporting India as well, where the specialty chemicals figure in very well. So even say a 5% share, so say example, China is now 80% market share in chemicals, and even a 5% from there to India. For India, the market share kinds of doubles the kind of demand that we are creating now. And a lot of companies, they have already increased capacity in the last couple of years, and they are still in a capex mode. So they're still witnessing huge demand. Companies like Deepak Nitrite, Atul Limited, Aarti Industries, Vinati Organics, PI Industries in the agrochemical, you can say the agrochemical pharma API space. So these are some of the players that we like within the specialty chemical space.
Okay, so next question we'll take it from Mr. Tushar. What about power sector or green power?
So
And
green
what
power,
is your view on
renewables
IRCTC?
sorry.
Yeah, there are two. Like, what about power sector or green power?
Okay. So,
Yes.
so basically, if you look at renewables, that is the future for the world. There is something called net zero that is being pledged by countries globally, and it's some years away. But basically, it means that you create a lot of uh, so you reduce your emissions gradually over a period of time, and what you take you convert by doing something else. So for example, recently Reliance wants to become a large player in the renewable space. A lot of these traditional power companies, they are also converting into renewable. So basically renewables as a growth story is pretty good, pretty strong. Again, not many pure play renewables players in listed in the listed space. Some of them are pretty small, some of them say for example, Adani has a renewable company which is listed. Reliance is getting into big. Some of the smaller companies, as I said, are getting into GA space. Uh, some of the traditional companies, for example, Tata Power is now almost one third company. The power generation is coming for renewables. So we like Tata Power a lot within the power space, both for the deleveraging story, for the renewable story, and also Tata Power is playing a large role in the EV growth patterns. Basically, they are making a lot of charging stations, the infrastructure that is required for EVs to move around freely in the country. They need a lot of these points, and that is where they are making these points available. So the first mover advantage will be to them. So we like that space. The core industry is doing well, economy doing well. Power is kind of a lead indicator. Power demand will go up. These companies will do well. So that is a space that should do well.
Okay, sir. Next question we'll take it from Mr. Pankaj. He's asking, what about IRCTC? Is it a good buy?
So IRCTC is one of the good, you can say, efficient PSU. It's kind of a monopoly in the rail ticketing service. They got into the catering business as well, but that is something which I don't think the monopoly will last for a very long period. Government will open up that for private players as well. They are getting into private train management also. So some of the trains which government are letting them to manage. Those are the key growth stories. But as I said, the core story is of a platform which is the rail ticketing service, and which is one of the largest train networks in the world. The number of tickets that is being issued on IRCTC platform, the kind of database information that they have. So it's a good growth story. Last 2 years, again, because of the pandemic and because of the travel restrictions, the numbers have been pretty here and there. But it's a very good company for the long term.
Okay, so next question we'll take it from Akshay. Oh no, we'll take it from Vaibhav Inamdar. How come pharma sector is not mentioned in investment to look out for?
So that is not. It's a good question, Weber. While in our picks we have DVs in from the pharma space, we have Apollo Hospitals from the healthcare space. It's not among the key sectors that we think that will do well in the near term. There's some of the reasons is that pharma did well for last 2 years. Valuations are high. Margin pressure is something that is happening again for some of these players, and growth in some of the regions like US and Europe. Initially, when the pandemic started, there was a lot of growth that these companies witnessed, but now that growth is tapering off. So if you have a 1 year horizon, pharma doesn't fit in the top 4 5 sectors. It is obviously there, but if you look at from a 5 year perspective, that is one sector that I think will do really very well. Lot of spending, government spending globally is happening on healthcare space, and Indian pharma players they have kind of created a large presence in some of these third world countries where there is no infrastructure, there is no healthcare system, so they depend on a lot of supplies from Indian manufacturers, so they will do well. So the outlook from a 3 to 5 year perspective is very positive. From a 1 year perspective, you can say it's not among the top 4 5 sectors.
Okay. We'll take the next question from Mr. Akshay. Microfinance sector in India, sir. If you would
So
highlight something on
microfinance
the.
as a sector, as I'm telling you, we have not seen. So there has been success stories, but they have not been able to become huge players. So, for example, Bharat Microfinance or that company was there. It got merged with IndusInd. So IndusInd had to acquire that. Some of the other players are there, but there have been a lot of issues to scale up, and we have seen that this with Bandhan Bank also. They started the business as a microfinance. They converted into a full-scale commercial bank, but there are a lot of challenges with microfinance. With so we see a lot of growth potential for some of these. You can say the with the digital payment and India becoming at the forefront of the Aadhaar based, the mobile phone availability, the smartphone, or you can say the internet availability, and the ability of people to interact through these mobile apps. That is taking a lot of sheen away from these players. Again, a problem with microfinance is that it is a lot more state subject. A lot of states they want to, because it affects the bottom of the pyramid, which are kind of the vote bank for the politicians. So a lot of times we see that some issues happens and government comes with every time there is an election, they say that we will waive off the loans, farm loans, this loan, that loan, and then these people think these microfinance loans are also to be waived off. They don't give. So a lot of NPAs happen during that time. So बहुत positive view नहीं है उस पे. Rather you play some of the large banks of which they are also doing microfinance and they are also doing fintechs and a lot of other things.
Okay. So we'll take next question from Mr. Shashikant Kothari. Will outflows of FIS with unwinding by Fed, etc., be a dampener to markets going
So I
forward?
showed you in my last few slides that last few months FIs have been unwinding, and that has kind of yes brought some kind of volatility in the market, but have not been able to dampen so far. We are still at 18,200, and our peak was 18,600, and we are still at a high valuation. So I would say that a valuation of 18 to 19 times would have been justified. A 20 to 21 valuation, even if we are growing at such a high pace, is kind of an on the higher side. So I don't think it can be a very big dampener. Already a lot of selling has happened. At best, I see some kind of time correction happening. There is a lot of hopes from the budget. Let's see post budget how things pan out. Earnings is something that is still comforting, and it's like the FIs chase. There is no color to their money. Wherever they see returns, they will follow them. So if Indian equities, if the earnings, economic growth is pretty strong, they will have no choice but to come back and invest in India.
Okay. Sir, if you can please show the show that particular slide of
Again, yeah,
stock picks.
yeah, I'll do that.
People would want to. Yeah. Next question, meanwhile, I'll take it from Mr. Jagdish. Sir, if you can share your views on legal battles between Future
Mm,
Group versus
no, I
Amazon.
have no views. How can I give a view on a legal battle? Very difficult to say.
Correct. Okay. So again, there's a question from Mr. Sandeep Maiti. Which are the top three Tata Group companies recommended for this new year?
So you can go with Tata Motors. Tata Motors is has kind of you can say seen a sharp recovery in their business model. They are at the forefront of global EV growth story. In India, they have already tasted success in terms of EVs. They are one of the highest selling EVs is the EV Nexon, and with as I said, the Tatas are very serious in the EV business. They are also making their group company Tata Power to set up the infrastructure so that the EVs can be sold easily. If you buy a Tata EV car, Tata Power comes and makes that connection for charging station free of cost. Sets it up at your house. So especially in cities like Bombay, it becomes very difficult when you are in tower and there is no parking. So in smaller towns, you have your own garage and you can go inside and make your point easily. But in cities like Bombay, this is very much required, and that is where they are doing. So Tata Motors, Tata Power, actually Tata Group, entire group has done so well last 1 year. But still, I would say that these are two companies, and then you can look at TCS. These are the three Tata companies that you can look at.
We'll take up next question from Mr. Sakal. Sir, what are your views on Mindtree as equity?
So, Mindtree is a decent mid-sized IT company. So we have a positive view. The results came
Okay.
in recently. These results were decent, not that good. So there are other stocks within the IT space which are doing well. But Mindtree is also a preferred stock. So you have companies like Mindtree, Persistent, both the so now Mindtree is owned by Larsen L&T. Both the other L&T IT companies, so L&T Infotech and L&T Technology Services, they are also kind of doing very well. L&T Infotech, the valuations is pretty high. L&T Technology, the valuations are a bit comfortable. They are all in different segments, uh, but they are all doing very well. As I said, the entire view on IT space is very positive.
Okay. So next question is from Mr. Pranjal. So your views on clean energy like Tata Power, is PE re-rating possible now?
So it will happen. It will, as I said, clean energy. A lot of demand is there. There is a good exponential growth in the core business, which is driving. Apart from that, specifically for companies like Tata Power, yes, with deleveraging happening with newer segments like EV and your renewables both start contributing significantly. There will be a significant PE rating.
Okay. So there is a question from Mr. Rahul Yogi. Let me answer this. Is it possible to add online nomination for my demat? Yes, Rahul, you can do it with a. You can just talk to your depository participant. Your depository participant will help you in this to add the nomination online on a demat account. Okay. So the next question I'll take it from Mr. Vaibhav Inamdar. He's saying what is margin and e-margin. We have to say e-margin is a facility which is offered only on eligible stock traded on stock exchanges, and margin amount is taken in form of cash, which is equivalent or eligible shares as accepted by your depository participant or your broker. Okay. So coming on to next question, I guess many people have many questions on electronic based vehicles.
Yeah.
Yes, green power as
So,
well. Yes.
So EV-based
Sir has
vehicles,
answered
I will
questions
tell
on
you, I
yes.
read the question. So EV-based vehicles, the answer is yes. Tata Motors is one of the preferred players. Uh,
Mhm.
there are not much directly EV vehicle manufacturers in India. Some of them are now getting into the two-wheeler space. So Greaves Cotton is another player which is now in EV two-wheeler space, which is doing very well. You have two other small players in the EV bus segment. So one is Olectra Green Tech and another is JBM Auto. So we don't have research on these names, but these are the players which are there, which are doing some business in the EV OEM space.
Okay. Next question is from Suman Kumar Sinha. Is asking whether course correction is possible in near future if Corona takes a bad turn.
Definitely, if we are sitting at these kind of valuations, any risk, global risk, domestic risk, can lead to a correction. From Corona, doesn't look like right now. It's a medical problem, or you can say it's a not a equity market problem, but the way globally scientists have come out and given the vaccines, and they are struggling to find answers every day. They are struggling to struggling with newer variants and trying to see how they can combat them. So it's all commendable for them. Uh, if it were to go worse, definitely if restrictions, lockdowns come back, if economic activity gets restricted, then the market will correct. If economic activity is continued with low restrictions, then I don't think there is a much of an impact. Even otherwise, with the known risks in the market, was what I have told, the potential downside risk is about 5 to 10% in the market. Something unknown out of the box or out of the syllabus, if something comes and impacts equities, then there could be a sharp correction. Otherwise, I don't see any reason right now for a correction of more than 5 to 10%.
Okay, next question we'll take it from Gauri Subramanian. Manian, sorry. So your views on gold and SGBs.
No, so I don't have a view. I don't track gold or sovereign gold bonds, so I will not be able to tell you. The only view that I have is that gold is a good hedge on inflation, and in your overall portfolio, you should have 5 to 10% allocation to gold. And government has come out with a good way of the gold, sovereign gold bonds to invest in gold. So you also get to, while you get to participate in the gold price uh, mm, appreciation through these bonds, the government is also willing to offer you over and above that some interest for buying these bonds. So while if you would have bought a physical gold, you would have just participated in the appreciation. Here, over and above that, you also get some interest as a bonus.
Yes, sir.
It's a good
Two
way of
point two
investing.
point five percent interest, sir. They get
Yeah. So
two
that's
point five percent
an
interest.
additional, you can say, cherry on the uh, cake, that you participate in the gold prices also, and then you also get 2.5% of interest.
Mhm. Yes, sir. Next question, we'll take it. Okay. Okay, so NPS related queries, if you can please drop an email to us, Prabhakaran sir. We won't be able to answer NPS related queries here. Okay, thank you. We'll move ahead with next questions. Okay. Uh, so there's a question from Mr. Sandeep Maiti asking, due to China plus one strategy by US or European companies, which manufacturing stocks are recommended?
So a lot of sectors will benefit. A lot of sectors are are benefiting. So the foremost is pharma, the API manufacturers, the specialty chemicals. Some of the textile manufacturers are benefiting. So a lot of demand from there, where India has a capability. There we are seeing a lot of demand. So these are the sectors that I can think of which are benefiting from China plus one. So you have specialty chemicals, textiles, uh, pharma, API manufacturers.
Okay. Sorry, there's a question from Vaibhav Inamdar. Sorry, any thoughts on the US stocks?
So US stocks, we don't track that, but as I told you, overall view on equity markets globally is very positive.
Okay. Let's take another question from Miss Natasha SG. How can we freeze the account so that the DP doesn't pledge share or misuse the money in the pool? Again, I would say, Natasha, you can you can speak to your depository participant, and depository participant will help you with this. Like, how can we freeze the accounts? Okay, so depository participant, it's one of the service which is called account freeze. So you can you can speak to your depository participant, and they will help you with the account freeze option. Secondly, if you have signed any kind of a POA document, you can check with the respective depository participant. You can, if you wish to revoke the POA document, yes, you can revoke the document at any given point of time, so that there should not be any kind of mishap happen if you are not aware that your DP should not, or your stockbroker should not do any kind of mishap on your account. So please, I will request, just talk to your DP. If your DP is not helping out with this service, you can drop us an email on relations@nsdl.co.in. We'll surely get your issues resolved. Thank you, Natasha. Let's take another question from the ID PKG.
Since there is just few minutes left, I will take the questions quickly so that we can cover all. So, Fed
Sure.
rate hike impact on India, again, a lot of that is already factored in. So the impact is that one, the liquidity, the easy money, the easy flow of liquidity through globally into emerging markets, that will come down. Indian central banks will also be forced to raise interest rates, which is again negative for the market. But a lot of that is factored in. As I said, the maximum downside that I see is 5 to 10%. L&T Tech, we have a positive view. Manoj, some of the good mid-cap IT companies to invest in: Tata Elxsi, Coforge, KPIT, L&T Technologies, Mindtree, Zensar, Persistent. So these are some of the good IT companies. PKG here is a very good question. Your top picks are showing highly valued companies. As I said, market is at a valuation which is a bit on the higher side. So what should be recommended? Should one wait for correction or buy at CMP? See, market will wait for none. And what should be the best strategy is to have a staggered buying approach. So what that will help you is you can divide it into 3, 4, 5. So if you want to invest, say, 1 lakh rupees, divide it into 3, 4 parts. You invest 10,000, 20,000 on days when markets have fallen to 1 to 2%. So that is where you will find the stocks which have nothing to do with the correction. They will also be down to 2 to 4, 5%. And those are the days when you should accumulate. So the best strategy is to do on a gradual basis. Even if the market goes up, you decide on your plan whether you want to do that in over the next 3, 4 months, or whether you want to do it over a 3, 4 week period. And if you are investing for the long term, 5 to 10% correction you may not get, and you will end up buying at 5 to 10% higher. L&T Tech, I've already given my view that I am positive. So Manoj asks about paid service for retail investors like stock recommendation. So we don't do that. What we do at Motilal is you can open an account and you will have access to all our research services. You will have an access to a relationship manager and an advisor who can help you. We don't charge for our fees. There are several advisory products that are available for a fee where they will give you portfolios, manage portfolios. Some of our so we have a service called Intelligent Advisory Portfolio Service. So I would suggest you to come open an account with Motilal, and maybe then you can be able to see all those services online. Silver ETF, again, commodity. I don't track manufacturing company to invest in. So manufacturing, see, just because someone is manufacturing, we can't focus on that. As I said, this is what the list I had shared. Will have a lot of companies which does manufacturing. So basically, you will have. So India has become more of you can say a service-oriented company, but you have manufacturing in Reliance, you have manufacturing in Tata Motors, Divi's is a manufacturing company. Godrej Consumer is a manufacturing company. Ramco Cement is a manufacturing company. So these are some of the manufacturing companies. If you want to focus the core industries, as I said, cement, capital goods. So Cement Ultratech is our preferred player in the large cap. Ramco, JK Cement in the mid cap space. In the capital goods, we like Siemens, ABB, L&T. They are the preferred players. You can look at some of the power sectors. Tata Power, as I said, is a preferred player there. Some of the infrastructure companies, L&T, you can look at. So these are players within the manufacturing space that one can look at. I think I have covered a lot. Last question I'll take is from Suman Kumar. What about LIC IPO? Sir, see, LIC will have to see the kind of valuation and kind of financials. The most difficult part was that LIC was not a corporate entity until now. It was a department of Government of India. The financials were not made for the shareholders. The financials was available as a unit holder or a policy holder. So we'll have to wait for the financials to come to see the numbers, to see the valuation. But nonetheless, as I said, insurance as a space we are very positive on. LIC is in the largest insurer company in India. So the company view is positive, but as investing, you have to see the financials and you have to see the valuation. We still don't know what price the IPO will come at, and that determines whether the company is good or bad in terms of as an investee company. So at a price, something is good, and at a price, even if the best of the company, it could be expensive. We don't know what the pricing is. So maybe you can track our recommendation closer to the IPO. We'll definitely come out with a report on our website. You will get the views from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
For coming out on this festival day and taking out time to hear us. Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your wonderful insight on the stock picks for 2022, and thank you, participant, for being present with us and having your hope you solved maximum questions of yours. And if you have any queries, you can also we have our list of programs available. You can join our forthcoming investor awareness program and put towards. Uh, various programs what we conduct jointly with our depository participant, with SEBI, with exchange. So we'll surely we'll be happy to conduct such programs for you. Thank you, Siddharth Khemka sir, for being with us and sharing your insight. Thank you, and
Thank
wishing
you,
everyone
everyone.
happy Makar Sankranti on this
Happy
special
Makar
occasion.
Sankranti to everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.